Take one.
Hey, welcome to Hype Sessions, the political commentary show for herbalhype.com. I am Jasmine, your host, and today we will be discussing the debt ceiling. Today we have with us Dallas Paul.
Hey, how you doing, Jasmine?
How you doing?
Nice to see you
Good.
again.
Please have a seat. Yeah, so you will be discussing the debt ceiling today. So what's this all about?
Well, the debt ceiling is it's basically the cap on how much debt that the U.S. government can incur at any given point. And so what we reached the limit of the ceiling where we were going to be borrowing too much money than what the government said we should be allowed. And
I'm sorry, excuse me. So, borrowing this money, how do we find out these calculations in borrowing the money?
Well, we live in a kind of this semi-capitalist society, and basically all capitalist societies make money off of debt, off of credit or borrowing in the red zone. This is how businesses are financed. Usually we go to the bank, there's an interest rate occurred, and that's kind of the same thing that we do here, is that when they print money, there's an interest rate occurred, and that's why inflation has the value of dollars deflating by a small percentage every year. It's because we're reprinting to pay off other debts or to finance other things.
Right, because I know I owe a car note and some other bills, so yeah, I can understand that, but go ahead.
Okay, so what happened recently is they took a vote to raise the debt ceiling. There was a big debate because a lot of people are saying that our government needs to be more fiscally responsible. But on the other hand, we also have to operate. There are people that we have to pay money that we borrowed from different countries, specifically the Chinese. And so they came to an agreement, and I'm just going to run down some of the basic points of the agreement. It was a 269 to 161 vote for all the political junkies out there. It was 174 Republicans and 95 Democrats that voted in favor of the bill.
How do you feel about that?
Well, it wasn't necessarily as bipartisan as I think, and I think that the Republican Party, specifically the Tea Party, is kind of holding the country hostage, because if the debt ceiling didn't raise, the effects of that would be catastrophic. I mean, we would almost go back into another, shall I say, depression, if you want to call it a Great Recession.
Yeah.
So I think they were kind of holding it hostage in the sense that in the small communities where a lot of, I don't want to say Republicans live, but let's say where they're more concentrated at, more in the rural areas and the urban sectors, money's based on what we call hard currency, like gold, farming products, things that are tangible, versus where you get into the city and money's based on corporations or the trust of your faith in the dollar. So you have faith that the dollar is worth something, so the dollar buys you something out of a store.
Right.
But it's based on the principles of economics, whereas when you go more rural, out into the rural, it's a little bit different. And so they wouldn't be as affected by the debt ceiling not being raised as people in the city would be, just because in their local communities they have enough resources and hard currency to sustain themselves, whereas in the city we would just collapse.
Okay.
But what happened is they said the debt ceiling could be raised by $2.4 trillion with an immediate $4 billion increase and an additional $5 billion increase if Obama wanted it, but that increase could be challenged by a 2/3 vote in the House and in the Senate. The new bill also called for cuts of more than $900 billion over the next 10 years to the fiscal budget. And it had, there was a special committee that formed, 12 persons, both in the House and the Senate, to discuss a balanced budget system or other areas where money could be cut.
So how would they go about discussing that? What would be the debates on that?
Well, it would pretty much be that I guess 12 people, either volunteered or selected by the speaker, would be put in kind of this special committee. They would go and try and find areas where they thought money could be cut down. One of the biggest issues that I think they're facing right now is a lot of the Tea Partiers want to cut Medicaid, Social Security, whereas these are social institutions almost which can't be cut. This is where people are put into this their whole working life. You have people that have been working 35 years that have been paying into Social Security, and if you cut it out, now you're doing them a disservice because they paid in, and now they expect to
receive what they paid in on.
Yeah. And so it's really a debate of where you want to cut and where you don't want to cut. You know, do we cut defense spending or do we cut Pell Grants? You know, spending.
It's a hard decision. It is.
It is, and they try to keep it as bipartisan as they can to kind of get both sides' opinions in there.
Right.
But like I said, right now the Tea Party is really playing hardball as far as what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do. And it almost seems as if they're willing to risk the financial stability of the country in order to push through their agendas.
Okay.
But that's another thing that the bill created was a mandatory vote in the House and the Senate for a amendment to the Constitution advocating how do you call it, balanced budget. And so it's kind of this vote they want to have that says, okay, from now on the government has to operate in a balanced budget, which is feasible but not necessarily the best thing that we should do, because like I said, we make money off of credit, borrowing and then making twice that much back, or however you see if we're in economic times, or you know, we're in times like now where it's a little bit harder to make money. And that's pretty much the gist of what the bill did. There was a lot of other minor things in there, but that's kind of the major bulk of what it did.
Okay.
So far.
So how do you feel about that as a combined bill, you know?
Well, I think that slashing, well, from an economic standpoint, slashing government spending during a recession, it seems like the right thing to do to, you know, to not spend money when you don't have a lot coming in, but it's actually counterintuitive. General economic principles would say that cutting government spending is going to decrease the money supply, which is going to inflate the price of the dollar, which actually makes it harder for me and you to buy stuff, because now that something something that's worth let's say $5 now, if the price of the dollar inflates by 20%, now it's worth $5.20, and we look at that on a bigger scale, you have 500 to 520 and 5,000. You can see how it keeps going.
Right.
So that even a small percentage change can have this kind of ripple effect across. And so it's something that people are battling with, mainly because, I mean, they have to look out for their constituents. They want to get reelected in. Let's think about this honestly.
Right.
People are trying to get reelected in for the next term.
Yeah.
And so they have to go tell whatever people elected them that they're doing what they said they were going to do, or at least what the people want them to do. But at the same time, they have to recognize that, hey, this is a real problem, and if we don't raise the debt ceiling, or if we don't find a permanent solution to this problem, that we could be in bigger trouble than we are now. So it's kind of people covering their ass and also trying to push forward an agenda. And I guess that's politics.
But how do you feel about, I guess, you know, them saying this before they're elected? How hard do you think it is actually when they're elected to actually fulfill these things that they say need to be done? Like, you know, the problem with Obama, everyone feels that, you know, he's not necessarily taking care of the whole recession problem or whatever but it's only been 4 years, he said before he got elected, that, you know, he wasn't going to be able to solve it in 4 years. It's a huge problem, and it's not going to be able to be compressed into, you know, a small term, and he said that from the beginning. So going back to this, how hard is it to actually fulfill what they say they're going to do when they get in office?
Well, I think it's extremely hard because there's a difference between what's right and what is popular opinion. And so a lot of times something that maybe is popular in the streets or in your local communities, that may be the wrong business principle to apply to a given situation. And because so many people ask for it, you kind of have to give into it. It's kind of like, you know, that cookies might not make you look as flattering as you want in your bathing suit. But if enough people want it, you got to bring cookies into the house, because that's just what they're asking for. So it's kind of give and take between something that needs to be done and keeping people happy, or at least content with their elected officials. And specifically the case with Obama, I think a lot of people neglect the fact that he's done a lot of what he said he was going to do, whether he did it in the manner that you liked him to do it in or not. A lot of the agendas that he said he was going to push through, especially the aggressive agendas, universal health care reform, these are some of the issues that you know, he really pushed, and maybe he didn't get everything that he wanted, but he definitely got a piece of that pie.
Okay. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for being on the show today. We really appreciate you coming through. Always nice to have you.
Thank you.
And you have just witnessed a Herbal Hype session. See you next time.
Oh,